barbarians wanted equality with the Chinese. For several decades, this foreign policy had maintained a kind of peace on China's northern borders. For the daughters of the Middle Kingdom, their new life with the nomads was more than a culture shock. The suffering of the Chinese princesses who were married to the barbarians is immortalized in a poem written in the 2nd century BC.
My people have married me in a far corner of earth, sent me away to a strange land. The round tent is my palace. Its walls are made of felt. Dried meat is my only food. Kumis is my drink. Endlessly I dream of my country, and my heart is all bruised. Oh, to be the yellow swan that returns to its homeland.
The difference between the two worlds could hardly be greater. In the north, the wild, wandering life of the steppes. To the south, the sedentary population, subject to strict rituals and rules. The main props of the Chinese Empire were the officials, educated according to the teachings of Confucius that regulated private and public life in the tiniest detail. Confucius' pupils had recorded his teachings in the 5th century before Christ. For 2,000 years, the faultless quotation and analysis of his works was the most important element of civil service examinations. This tradition lasted until the collapse of the Chinese Empire in the 20th century. China saw itself as the protector of civilization, the cultural center of the world. And the man who embodied this claim was the emperor, the son of heaven. The high officials of the empire gathered in the imperial palace in Chang'an. The sublime emperor had summoned them to an audience. Emperor Wu Di of the Han dynasty made Confucian teachings the official philosophy of the empire. And such high moral standards were not compatible with a China that bought off barbarians with tributes and brides. Now it is time for the imperial court to determine China's future foreign policy. Under one of Emperor Wu Di's predecessors, a famous memorial described the natural hierarchy of the Chinese Empire. Court officials certainly knew it well. According to this hierarchy, the Son of Heaven is the head of the empire, and the barbarians are the feet. To command the barbarians is the power vested in the emperor on the top, and to present tribute to the Son of Heaven is a ritual to be performed by the vassals at the bottom. The sublime ruler is no longer willing to pay tribute to the barbarians and to continue peaceful and friendly relations with them. It is 133 BC. The emperor makes his decision. Nothing but military action can re-establish the natural hierarchy of the empire. The imperial army is excellently equipped and ready to attack. The emperor's generals consider their strategy for the coming offensive. In the past, the Xiongnu were superior on the battlefield, but the generals have learned from their predecessors' mistakes. This time, the Chinese will give the barbarians a taste of their own medicine.
一群人面兽心的胡人。
After a series of surprise attacks and skirmishes on the frontier, the empire marches out to the first decisive battle. The general of carriage and cavalry leads a mounted force of thousands into enemy territory. The offensive is a complete success. Many thousands of Xiongnu are killed or captured, and the general's soldiers seize huge amounts of booty. More than 1 million cattle and sheep fall into Chinese hands. The imperial army forces the Xiongnu back to the far north of the steppes. But more campaigns will follow. This is just the start of Emperor Wu Di's politics of expansion. The long-disputed Ordos region was once more in Chinese hands. As they chased the fleeing nomads, the empire's armies also reached far to the west. They soon occupied the Heshi Corridor, the bottleneck between the desert to the north and the Qilian mountain range. But what could they do with this empty stretch of land? For the Chinese, it had considerable strategic importance. By conquering the Heshi Corridor, they had gained access to the Silk Road, and that meant control of the trade caravans. And there was more. From the Heshi Corridor, the imperial army could break out and conquer new realms far to the west. And there, they could find the legendary heavenly horses that the Emperor Wu Di so desired, because with them, he could perfect his new art of war. Under the Han Dynasty, a number of breeding stations were established for the heavenly horses. One of these stations, founded more than 2,000 years ago, still exists today. After the successful campaigns against the barbarians, the emperor again summoned his advisors. He asked the critical question: how can the new order, one with force of arms, be maintained? How can the empire's new frontiers be made secure? And how can the conquered territories be protected from enemy attacks? The court falls back on a solution that already has a long tradition in the Middle Kingdom. The frontiers will be secured by the construction of a long wall. The empire's high officials speak strongly against this proposal. They warn of the risks and high costs of such an undertaking. But they cannot change the emperor's mind. Heaven created the mountains and rivers, and the Han established fortresses and walls. These all aim to divide the interior from that which is alien, says a Chinese quote from the 2nd century. Today, the farmers in the north build walls around their houses in the same way their ancestors 2,000 years ago once built the long wall at the border. First, they fill clay into a mold made of wooden boards. Then they flatten the clay with rams. It's heavy, slow work, but with enough manpower, the wall rises meter by meter.